No, you want to save that safety net. You absolutely do. In place. Okay, neutral jump. Okay, Inzem, one read at a time. Do you keep the duo alive? They're playing as a duo, but right now it's all up to Inzem. Oh, Inzem gets caught. Is that going to connect? And it's not.
You can't imagine how much I like playing Mortal Kombat.
It's showtime.
Maybe not this one. Starting from the 9th part on Xbox 360, when together as friends we could gather around a common screen, choose our favorite characters and just fight each other at some party. And of course we played casually by spamming specials and randomly pressing buttons. Then with the new console generation, NetherRealm released Mortal Kombat X, which was even more brutal due to its darker and more realistic art style. I played it even more because I liked the process of training and showing it off to friends. But closer to the new 11th part, this ritual of playing MK offline with friends stopped, because I moved to another city and we basically stopped seeing each other. This is how my relationship with the fighting genre would have ended. If only I hadn't visited my friends a few months ago when we decided to try both MK11 and 1, which turned out to be great. The cameo system from the last one felt fresh, and simplified controls helped to quickly get used to it. It was the same good old Mortal Kombat with characters we like and the fun it brings when we play together in the same room.
Cut. Reset.
Deadly uppercut, take 2.
Action. Cut.
Who hired this guy? What the fuck?
At this point you should have started wondering why I am talking about MK when the video is supposed to be about Riot's 2XQ. You see, after this story I thought that it would be nice to play a fighting game online with friends, but something stopped me from buying the game. I thought that maybe the magic was in live presence, and to be honest, I was a bit overwhelmed by the possible amount of hours I'd need to spend on getting decent skills. Although I still wanted to get the same emotions, so I continued exploring other fightings, and to my surprise there happened to be so many of them, existing ones and games which should be released this year, like the Avatar or Marvel. And as you've already figured out, the fighting game from Riot, the studio behind League of Legends and Valorant, released as well. But it happened almost half a year ago. I checked its state once a while but still somehow missed the launch. Perhaps the reason is lack of marketing. Anyway, it's a stylish cooperative fighting game which is also free to play. At instant I got obsessed by the idea that in a fighting I could play not against friends but with them, and to do it for free. Is it even real? The game should be an absolute masterpiece. Almost right after the release, half of the team were laid off. Obviously, something went south. Nevertheless, I believe that 2XQ is the best fighting to get into the genre. It has some real clever tools that make onboarding quick and fun, and exploring them is exactly what this video is about. But let's start with the problem. The first impression. What will people see if they stumble upon the gameplay of 2XQ? It would be 2 champions on each side, abundance of visual effects, and different kinds of resources. This definitely looks overwhelming for beginners, when the experience may dislike the tag fighting genre, which is the name for games with several playable characters at once. Recently I've even heard that anything apart from Street Fighter or Tekken isn't real fighting, whatever it means. Even though it looks like the fighting genre in general feels okay and new games keep appearing, I still feel like they have a problem with attracting new audience. And if difficulty was an obstacle for success, then Souls-likes wouldn't be so well. The fact that plenty of fightings based on existing franchises keep appearing tells about the commercial potential of the genre, or mass delusion. And I don't know if many people are interested in fightings, but what I do know is that despite the fact that the game is really pretty complex, it is by far not as hard to get into as in some established fightings, where you'll basically have to learn to play piano to do a combo. Although it isn't something that could be seen in a video, and we'll discuss how Riot actually tries to change this first impression a bit later. But now let's take a look at a few interesting things that are on the surface. The unique feature of the game which got my attention in the first place is that it's one of the very few existing fighting games that allow you to play in co-op. While it doesn't necessarily improve the player experience, it's such an awesome idea that you can play not against your friends, but with them, and to do it in any format you like. Online, offline, on different platforms, you're able to learn and to get real matches simpler and faster by sharing ideas and playing with a friend. And the most important is that neither you nor your friends have to pay anything, because 2XKO, despite its expensive look, is free to play. Plenty of successful multiplayer shooters have already switched to the same monetization strategy, so why not to try it for fightings, where new chunks of content like champions and stages could be added even years after the release and sold separately for either real money or in-game currency, like Riot's League of Legends or even Apex as an example. I believe that the free-to-play nature of the game and presence of co-op are very important to get new people into not only the game, but the whole genre.
What is Simo gonna do here? Level 3 available as well, and if Jinx is in trouble, she might pop it. They're confirmed the kill, and Team Japan are the champions. They were literally born for this. The duo with the ultimate synergy, sharing DNA and sharing the championships here at our first ever Red Bull knockout.
Buying any other fighting may feel like a gamble. You're paying for the unfamiliar type of gameplay where you'll be completely alone, challenging some experienced monsters, even though there are usually relatively good tutorials nowadays. But the problem of tutorials is that they're usually boring and not pretty relevant to actual gameplay, where you'll have to do the same actions just at triple speed. It's a problem which other genres don't usually have, because they have more friendly single-player games, like shooters. But what happens in 2XKO when you decide to try it and complete the first tutorials? As every other fighting, the game requires a specific set of skills like movement, defense and general ability to perform some combos. Here is a dilemma: it has to teach the new players, but at the same time to engage them as soon as possible. In-game tutorial solves the first issue, but completely fail with the second one. The Riot's fighting actually does something interesting about that, and it's called the pulse combo, which is basically an auto-combo system. If you turn it on during champion selection, you'll be able to do combos by pressing the same attack button. So instead of spending hours in training mode, everybody is able to jump into casual matches right after the initial tutorials and really do something.
The light is your deliverance.
And it's really as simple as it sounds. I personally used it for some time and was able to focus on getting used to gameplay, playing games, rather than being stuck in tutorials. With this setting on, it doesn't even matter what champions you are playing for. Of course, they all have unique special moves, but during first steps, knowledge of movement, defense and variations of attacks, together with pulse combo, is more than enough. I can't express how impressed I was when I saw this option for the first time. It's a curious finding for game development in general, because sometimes it's not very easy for people who haven't played video games at all to even try them. I can already imagine how similar mechanics could be used in slashers on lower difficulties. To my shame, I haven't played Devil May Cry, and as it turns out, the fifth part has a similar auto-assist feature. Who could have thought? But let's say you'd like to get more classic fighting experience, and having two champions looks like too much. Then fuses could help you out. These are gameplay modifiers which could be chosen before the match. They allow to swap champions more, use their assist options 2 times in a row, or play for only one champion. Selecting the latest type of fuse and using pulse combo makes gameplay much easier. You don't have to think about swapping champions or performing combos, just press buttons and have fun. Whether you became interested in the game due to its usual style, or recognizable characters, or presence of co-op, or just decided to play because it's free, there are still a few cards up its sleeve, like great in-game tutorials that are not only made to show the ropes, but also to introduce more advanced mechanics, throw, escape, parry, launcher attacks, the tools that are not necessary for beginners but allow you to get better one step at a time. And each champion has their own set of guides for combos. They're also split in difficulty categories, in order to let every player find something useful. When we talk about combos, it's worth mentioning that controls in 2xQ are simpler in comparison to other fightings. I would even say they're much simpler, because here are special moves from Street Fighter 6. Even on the paper they look intimidating. Of course there are certain common shapes that help with remembering this, but still it feels like a lot. When we take Mortal Kombat 1 as an example, the situation becomes better. Specials on average require one input less in comparison. But in 2xQ you have to make only one or two input taps, because specials are set on separate buttons, triggers on gamepads. It's just beyond comparison. The game switches attention from performing moves to tactical decisions like positioning or mix-ups, and I think this is why matches there look so dynamic. On top of that, there are already plenty of introduction guides on YouTube for the most curious players, as well as replays of high-rank competitors. I feel that the game's community is quite active, it's also fueled by Riot's money and marketing at the moment. Just in the past 3 months they arranged and supported a few tournaments. Alright, the mentioned features can be divided into 3 groups. The first helps the game to stand out and attract new players by presenting co-op and being free to play. I'd also mention the game's expensive look and the Riot's recognizable characters, although these are quite subjective traits. If people decide to try 2xQ, they will face the actual beginner-friendly mechanics, pulse combo mode and fuses. Some of them can make the game a bit simpler, and if the players stick around for some time, they will discover either inputs, a huge base of tutorials and active community. And I have got through all of them. Even though I'm still learning, the journey has been very comfortable so far, and I really respect how the developers made 2xQ the most, to my taste, accessible fighting with many unique, outstanding features, and I plan to stick around in the near future. Also there is one more thing, the game's future. The development had its ups and downs over the years, and if you're interested in this story, I recommend you to check this video. It's a bit of a clickbait, but really interesting. I think that in order to keep the game alive and well, Riot should regularly support it with new content, and so far the 2026 for the game is going pretty good. 4 champions were added, a few new stages, duo finder and voice chat, and skins as well. And I also think the developers wanna make the game the first to go fighting for everybody. This is already a much harder task. I believe that the best way to attract new people into the genre would be a story campaign or at least more casual modes. And it looks like Riot tries to go in this direction, because not so long ago they added a PvE mode called The Climb, where you have to go through a series of matches with random bots, either alone or with a friend. The most interesting is that it's actually a roguelite mode. The closest comparison I can come up with is that it's towers from Mortal Kombat, combined with the run structure from Slay the Spire. While I don't feel like it has enough variety to keep players too long, it's a really fun mode with some crazy builds, and I really hope the developers will extend it or add something similar. I also hope that you enjoyed the video. I hope Riot will continue to improve the game, and it seems that they're not planning to give up. And I also wanna recommend the introduction video from the official 2xQ channel, which helps to understand how fightings work in general. So share your impressions from the game and from the video in the comments. Please subscribe, as it really helps to continue making videos. And see you on Unburied.